You've probably seen the headlines, right? Maybe you've even heard the term insect apocalypse. It's a pretty powerful, really alarming phrase that makes you picture a world just silently emptying out. But what's the real story behind all this? Okay, let's get into the science and see what it actually tells us.
I mean, some media reports have put out some truly mind-boggling figures, like this one. The idea that a huge chunk of the world's insects could just vanish? It's the kind of thing that, yeah, it's going to grab your attention and spark some serious concern.
But is it really that simple? Is it just one straightforward story of decline everywhere all at once? Well, when scientists try to answer that question, they've run into this massive challenge, and it all starts with one fundamental problem.
Imagine you had to count every single person on Earth. But you have no official records, no census data, and most people are actively hiding from you. That's kind of what entomologists are up against. They call it the Great Data Gap.
First off, just think about the sheer scale of it all. Scientists estimate there are something like 5.5 million different species of insects on this planet. I mean, that is a staggering number to even wrap your head around, let alone try to count. And here's where it gets even crazier. A full 80% of those species, we're talking over 4 million of them, haven't even been scientifically described yet. We haven't even given them a name. So here's the crucial question. How can we know for sure what we're losing if we don't even know what's there to begin with?
And, this problem has a very specific geography. The vast majority of all that insect diversity, something like 85%, is packed into the tropics. But those are the exact regions where we have the least amount of long-term data. The places that are absolutely teeming with life are the ones we know the least about. Now, this map really brings that gap to life. Each one of those dots is a long-term study. And you can see they are overwhelmingly clustered in Europe and North America. Huge swaths of the globe, especially those tropical regions we just talked about, are practically blank. This geographic bias is a massive hurdle to getting a real global picture. On top of those data gaps, we also have to think about, the human element. There's something called publication bias. Basically, studies showing scary declines are just more likely to get published because, let's be honest, something happening is a more interesting story than things are staying the same. This can really skew our perception of the overall trend. And then, of course, you have media sensationalism, where these complex, nuanced scientific findings get boiled down into scary headlines that just don't capture the whole picture. So, given all these challenges, how in the world do scientists actually do it? How do they get even a snapshot of these tiny, hidden populations? Let's take a look at the very clever tools of their trade. It's not just one single method, but a whole arsenal of traps and techniques. Each one is designed to sample a totally different part of the insect world, from the little guys crawling on the forest floor to the ones flying way up high in the canopy. Okay, first up is the malaise trap. It looks kind of like an open-sided tent, and it works passively. It intercepts flying insects, and because most insects have this instinct to fly upwards to escape, the tent's design brilliantly funnels them right into a little collection bottle at the very top. It's awesome for getting a continuous sample of what's flying through an area. Now for the critters that crawl along the ground, think beetles, spiders, that sort of thing, there's the pitfall trap. It's so deceptively simple. It's basically just a cup buried so the top is level with the soil. An unsuspecting insect just walks right in. And its simplicity is its strength. Scientists can set up dozens of them to get a really solid picture of what's happening at ground level. And to see what's living on a particular plant, for that, scientists use a beating sheet. Now, unlike the other traps, this is a very active method. You hold a white sheet of fabric under a branch and give the branch a few firm but gentle taps. Whatever was clean to the leaves just falls right onto the sheet, giving you an instant snapshot of that plant's little insect community. So we have the big global data problem, and we have the tools scientists use to try and fill in the gaps. Now let's see how this all plays out by zooming way in on a single, pretty remarkable story from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. This isn't just any old study. This is, it's like a scientific gift. See, back in the late 1940s, researchers meticulously surveyed the birds and insects in the park. Then, decades later, starting in 2019, a new team went back to the exact same spots and used the exact same methods. This created a direct 70-year comparison, a priceless window into the past. So, here's the big question. This is a protected national park, right? It's a refuge from a lot of the direct human pressures. So after more than 70 years,
What did the science team actually find?
While the results were fascinatingly complex. For the birds that eat insects, the story was pretty clear: widespread decline. 11 of the 28 species they looked at had dropped significantly. But for the insects themselves, the picture was much, much more mixed. Some species and some areas showed declines, sure, but others actually showed increases. There were clear winners and losers, not a simple, uniform collapse.
So what was causing all these changes? The researchers pointed to a trio of powerful drivers. First, the forest itself was changing. Key tree species like hemlock and fir were disappearing. Then you had invasive pests like the hemlock woolly agelid that were just transforming entire sections of the ecosystem. And of course, hanging over all of it were the effects of a warming climate, felt all across the mountains.
Okay, let's zoom back out for a second. If a relatively pristine park shows such a complicated pattern of winners and losers, what does that tell us about this idea of a single global insect apocalypse?
And this right here is the main takeaway from the science. The insect story, it's not one of a uniform global collapse. It's more like a complex tapestry woven from millions of local stories of change. The fate of insects is being shaped by local conditions, creating this mosaic of populations that are rising, falling, or just holding steady. And that's why these long-term local studies, like the one in the Smokies, are so incredibly important.
But, and this is a big but, all this complexity doesn't mean we can just relax. As the scientists themselves point out, we have to act now. This quote, it just lands with real urgency. The whole point of monitoring these populations is to understand them before they're gone. We just can't afford to wait until we have a perfect, complete picture.
So in the end, the science is telling us to look closer, to move beyond this single, simple story and see that the real action is happening at the local level. It shows us that understanding the insect apocalypse really means understanding countless individual stories of change. Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. What local insect stories are unfolding right now in your own neighborhood?